Welcome to the POZcast, where street smart, business smart, all kinds of smart people share their insights into the world of marketing, career journeys, and personal growth. So sit back and prepare to get enlightened with your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the POZcast, where I bring you the best and brightest from the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. The goal of the POZcast is to bring you, the job seekers, my listeners, to new outside-the-box advice and tactics to take your search to the next level, to really separate yourself from the competition. And my guest today, Austin Belcak, does just that. Austin is the founder of Cultivated Culture, where he teaches people how to land jobs they love without applying online. And that's a crazy concept for a lot of us, but we'll certainly get to it. And his strategies have helped people land jobs at places like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Deloitte, Goldman, just to name a few. I'm sure you heard of these places without even applying online. He's also been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, Fastco, and a whole lot more. But folks, that is not his daily job. He is currently the director of partnership development over at a little company called Microsoft. I think they own another little company called LinkedIn. So he certainly found a way to land a great gig for himself. And recently I was drawn to Austin's content on LinkedIn, and I had to connect with him. I had to find out, he practices what he preaches. I want to hear how he landed his own job. I want to hear how he, gives others advice on this, and we're going to share a whole lot more. Austin, welcome to the POZcast. Thanks for coming on.
Adam, it's great to be here, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't we start off and Give My Tribe? Why don't you tell us a little bit of your origin story of how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, man, for sure. So it really all started back, I guess, if we're doing it, quick version, it started back in college where, I showed up and my whole goal was to be a doctor. I think we've all had that idea in our head. One day we'll grow up, we'll be a doctor, we'll make tons of money, we'll help people, do all that. So I got to college and I immediately failed chemistry, French, a couple other classes. And I got out of my freshman year with like a 1.99 GPA. I think I just missed the 2 mark.
They call that the Mendoza line in baseball, the Mendoza
Exactly,
line.
Exactly. I was batting well below the Mendoza line. And I don't know if too many med schools are hiring or accepting people who have that kind of GPA. So I had a decision to make. I was like, I can go explore some new stuff, or I can enjoy the social aspect of college. And I went to boarding school. We were kind of stuck on campus, and the first day I moved into my dorm room. I'm like, what am I going to do tonight? Should I go to McDonald's? Should I go to a restaurant? I got all this freedom. And then this car pulls up like, hey man, you want to go to a party? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so I definitely took that route for the rest of college. And by the end of it, I hadn't really applied online. I hadn't really interviewed anywhere. I hadn't even looked at any jobs. The one job that I did get was just plopped into my lap from my roommate's dad. And that was fine with me because I got it. I interned there junior year. I had the offer by the end of the summer, and I could just go about enjoying my senior year. Then I quickly realized that, that job was terrible. I didn't think about cost of living. I was getting paid way below what I deserved and what I needed to get by. So I racked up like $10,000 of credit card debt 3 months after graduation. And my boss was terrible. He treated me like crap. So I knew I had to get out, but I didn't know how to do it. And so I went and I took advice from all these people that we normally go to, right? Friends, family, career counselors, online gurus, quote unquote.
People that know what they're talking about, so to speak.
Exactly. And they all told me the same thing. They're like, tweak your resume, tweak your cover letter, apply online.
Right.
So I did that. And about 300 applications later, I had 0 interviews. And
it's frustrating.
Frustrating was an understatement for sure. I was like getting off calls and like punching my steering wheel in my car and like not able to sleep and like super stressed out. And the worst part about it was that all these people that you normally go to for advice were telling me this one thing, and that one thing wasn't working. And there were no other avenues or approaches that I was aware of. So I figured I had to make a change. And basically, I think we'll probably dive into the change that I made in the system that I kind of developed. But essentially,
let's get into that, man. Like, you were in it, you were struggling, you were frustrated, you were applying, you were applying to everything online, and it took you a little bit to realize, but you finally came to that epiphany, like, it's just a black hole. Now, why is no one responding to me? I feel like I'm applying for qualified jobs. I feel like I have a good background. And what was that moment, and what did you do?
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody tells you, right? You pay all this money to go to college, especially in the US, and you do that because you're basically guaranteed a job. You know, you can get your foot in the door anywhere with a college degree. And honestly, that's simply not true these days. So, I mean, that moment came after about 100 applications with 0 replies. And also I did get a few interviews from family, friends, personal network, things like that. And they all told me the same thing, like, hey, you're a great kid, but we have all these other applicants who have more experience and you don't really have any. So, you know, sorry, but we got to move on. And so I had no idea what else to do. And the inflection point really came when I sat down with an alumni from Wake who worked at Uber. And he was like, look, man, you know, you're taking advice from all these people who haven't been where you want to go. You know, none of these people work at the companies that you're aiming to get to, and none of them have done it coming from a non-traditional background like you have. So you need to get out there and you need to find people who have already achieved what you want to achieve. And that was a game changer. So immediately I went home and I wrote down like 4 criteria for my dream job, which were to be living in a big city. I was in Charlotte, North Carolina when I graduated from school.
You set your goals.
Yeah. So I set my goals. I wanted to be in New York, LA, big city like that. I wanted to work for a leading tech company like a Microsoft or a Google. I wanted to be making 6 figures annually, and I wanted to be doing it all before the age of 26 because I didn't want to wait forever for this to come to fruition. So then I went and I hit up LinkedIn hard, which is, you know, you mentioned it before, but one of the best platforms out there for job seekers, professionals, especially for this kind of thing. And I just combed through people who were already working at these companies. And I tried to check all the boxes. I would match their job title up with stuff on salary.com.
So you really went in deep to LinkedIn. You utilize the platform to search. And I talk about that all the time. Is you got to put the work on. These people aren't just going to float to the surface.
Yeah. Exactly. So I had to go out there and find him, and I would start sending cold emails to the people. And I specifically tried to find people who came from a non-traditional background like my own. And I was like, how'd you do this? Like, how'd you get it done? And basically those conversations led to a couple of the 2 major components of the system that I use to get my job and that I teach, you know, the thousands of people that come through my community, which are basically, 1, you need to get a referral. But you don't necessarily have to know that person already. You can build that relationship from scratch. And you can pick and choose who you get in contact with. So the best part about this is we can go say, hey, you're the hiring manager. You'd be the person sitting next to me on my team if I got hired. I want to build a relationship with you because not only can you refer me in, but if I turn you into an advocate for me, you can coach me through the interview process and you can in the room. Yeah,
so let's talk about the process once you started sending those emails. I'm sure you had a decent amount of rejections at first until you found the right type of message. And just generally speaking, what was the type of message that really resonated when you reached out to people?
Sure. So the biggest mistake that people make when they reach out is they send an email and they make it about themselves and they kind of show up with their palm out. So it's something like, you know, hey, here's my resume. Can you take a look? Or I'm looking for a job at your company or in your industry. Can you help me? Or, you know, what advice do you have? Because, you know, I'm trying to make this jump. And even if it's something as innocuous as, hey, I'm looking for advice, help. It's still, there's a lot of eyes. It's very
want. It's one-sided.
Exactly.
Transactional.
And when you're hitting people up who've never met you before, never heard of you, never seen your name, you know, they're busy, right? They got their own priorities. They got their job, you know, maybe they went to the doctor and something happened that they're worried about, or their finances, or they've got all this stuff happening and you're like the lowest priority on their list. So if you show up and you're like, hey, do this for me, that's going to be a big no, right?
No way.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you switch that? What was that message? Exactly. What was your approach?
So basically what I would do is I would research them and I'd try to find an angle to make it about them. And I would say, I would look for anything. Especially for the people that I found, since I was coming from a non-traditional background, I would basically send them an email because I was looking for people who had a non-traditional background. I would say, hey, you know, I saw that you made this jump from whatever, healthcare to tech or HR into sales. And I know that couldn't have been easy. And I'm sure you bumped up against a lot of challenges and a lot of people who told you couldn't do it. If you have a few minutes, I'd love to hear your story, your path, and learn more about the obstacles you faced and how you overcame them. If you have a few minutes, let me know. And so I've really built them up.
It's receptive. Yep. Let's just pause there for a minute. And I want people to understand the dynamic shift here. The key dynamic shift is making it not about you and what you want. You have to relate to people, and you also have to understand people's time is valuable. My time, and I'm sure Austin's as well, time is your most valuable asset. And you have to be very conscious when asking someone for their time. In some ways, I think it's more personal than asking for money.
Mhm.
You know, your time is valuable. And another point that I want to call out, what Austin is talking about here takes work and effort, a lot of work and effort. And if you're not willing to put it in, if you're not willing to put in the time or half-ass it, then don't bother with this approach and expect results.
Yep, 100%. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, Adam. I think a lot of people, they learn about this and then they start sending emails and they don't see an immediate return and they're like, well, this doesn't work.
Right. Or they get lazy and they don't customize it. They just go with a template, a copy and paste, and they get sloppy. And people know a template. Believe me, the amount of crap that you get on LinkedIn right now with sales, it's absolute garbage. So let me ask you, did you use this approach to land your job at Microsoft?
Yeah, 100%.
Tell us a little bit about that. Pull back the curtain. Let's hear it.
For sure. So essentially what I did, first I needed to get experience. And if you're looking to switch industries, no matter what, you have to find a way to get real world results if you want to make it happen. So you good? Sorry. So yeah, for me, everybody would tell me, hey, you don't have enough experience. And so I knew that, especially from talking to these people at these companies, they had done the same thing. They'd gone out and found a way to turn first learn the industry that they wanted to get into, but then turn it into real world results. So I went out and I taught myself digital marketing. And then I took the knowledge, I got Google certified. I got certified on Facebook and all these other platforms. And then I took that knowledge and I went out and I pitched small businesses until I had enough clientele to basically run a little freelance shop. And so those were my results. You know, nobody was willing to hire me without experience. So I had to go build the experience myself.
Right. You had to have it.
Yep. And that was the starting point. And pitching those companies was a great lead into, you know, the pitching myself to these the companies that I wanted to work at. So like I said, you know, one of the major components is finding the right people. The second piece is finding a way to illustrate your value that shows what you'll bring to the table instead of focusing on what you've done in the past. So if you don't 100% align to the job that you want on paper, you're going to spend all your time defending your past unless you choose to shift the narrative. So the only way to do that is to find something that you can show them that basically validates your value. I call it a value validation project. But so basically I combined those two sentiments. So the first thing I did was I found a target role and I said, this is the role that I want. And then I created a pipeline, same as you would for sales. So I just got 100 contacts across 10 companies. I basically did 10 contacts per company. And I just started reaching out to them. And I used the template we said before, like, hey, you know, I saw that you're doing this cool stuff or you came from this background. I'd love to learn more.
But you put in the work to research. It wasn't just a template. I mean, you had a format.
Yeah, every email is personalized. Every email is unique. And the goal is honestly the goal of an email is not to get hired. It's simply to get somebody on the phone. Because once you get somebody on the phone, you got them locked in for half an hour. You're talking.
It's about brevity, right? Your emails weren't too long. They were short and to the point. I want everyone to pause here and rewind this podcast about 2.5, 3 minutes and hear a couple times through the tactics that Austin is talking about here.
Yeah, and if you just want a quick hit list, I mean, basically the cold emails that get the most responses, they're personalized, they're 120 words on average, they're written at a third grade level, and there are tools you can use on the internet. If you go type in, you know, like reading level grader or whatever, you can copy paste your email in there and they'll tell you. So they're written at the third grade level. They have it's
reading comprehension, right? It's attention. If you look at an email quickly, I mean, listen, the sheer volume that I get every single day, visually speaking, from an optics perspective, you're more inclined to read a shorter message that's easier to read. Your brain can process words really quickly. So you have to be cognizant of the I guess it's the biology, the optics of human, you know, comprehension.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. That's what it's all about. It's making it easy for the other person is the best way to put it. So sending those emails was my start. And then I would book these conversations and basically before the conversations, you know, I picked 10 companies that I wanted to work at. This process it's really effective. It's not very scalable. So I picked 10 companies and I researched the crap out of them. I didn't stop until I knew everything about their current status, challenges they're facing, big initiatives they have for the next 3 to 6 months, their goals, their vision, their culture, all of that. And then I tried to dig into the specific teams that I was looking into. So, you know, if I was going to be hired into the retail vertical or the automotive vertical or something else for advertising, what was their stance in that space? What were they looking to do? So I'd spend about 3 to 5 hours researching each company. And then I would start reaching out to these people. So I did the research first because it informed some of the outreach.
Right.
And then when I got on the phone with them, my goal was basically to let them talk for the first half hour, get them warmed up, get them feeling good. There's a lot of research out there that shows that, when people talk about themselves and their personal interests, the pleasure centers in their brain that are associated with eating a good meal, having sex, cocaine, light up. So basically, if I can get somebody to talk about themselves, I'm tapping into that. Like you said, it's the biology, and it makes them feel good. And
you're soliciting a response.
Yeah. And if I let them go for half an hour, then I still have half an hour to spin it back to what I want, what I need. But now they're open, they're receptive. And so I would then flip the narrative and basically say, hey, well, this is amazing. And it really resonated with me because I'm looking to make a similar transition. So, here's sort of where I'm at. What advice do you have? And also, I'd love to learn more about your role. Like what big challenges do you have? And so that's basically the major things I would try to take away from it were advice from them, and also the biggest challenges or the biggest initiatives their team was running at the moment, because that was my window into proving out my value. So time and again, a lot of these companies would tell me, hey, you don't have enough experience. And so what I would work to do is I would work to understand those challenges they were having, those initiatives, and then I'd go back and I'd put something together. Again, I call it a value validation project, but basically a deliverable that shows exactly what I bring to the table and what they'll get if they hire me. So when
Guys, the key takeaway here is the amount of work and effort that you put into it has paid dividends. You work in one of the biggest, best companies in the world because you put in the time and you didn't stick to doing the same exact thing. And you said something earlier that kind of resonated with me. This is not scalable, and not everything is meant to be scalable. When you're strategic and you're targeted and you're laser focused in your job search and you know where you want to be and you put in the effort with tactics like this, you see the results.
Yeah, 100%. And so I basically took, I got in the door with people at Google and Microsoft and Twitter. And for the value validation piece for Google, my interview process with them actually was about 7 months long, which was ridiculous. But everybody there told me, you don't have enough experience. You can't do this. You don't know what you're talking about. So I put together a pitch deck, and my goal was basically to be selling into new business for small to medium-sized businesses. So I put together a pitch deck, and I went in there and I said, you don't think I can do this? Let me pitch you the same way I'd pitch a client if you hired me. And so I had a whole deck, I had slides, and I basically showed them, I know your product, I know the narrative, and this is exactly what I bring to the table if you hire me. So that was that for them. For Twitter, when I was interviewing with them, at the time they were having trouble monetizing, and that was the big thing that Wall Street and people were ragging on them for. And so I went in and I said, hey, here's a one sheet or a couple slides with 5 ideas for how you can monetize your existing audience without doing anything else. And so I come in, I interview well, but then I also have this other piece that allows me to shift the narrative away from, hey, you don't have enough experience.
It's a value add.
Here's exactly what I'm going to do if you hire me. So I bury the doubts and concerns, and I show them what I bring to the table if they were to invest in me.
It's a proactive approach to the job search. You're going in there problem solving. You're going in with that presentation already. That shows initiative, and that shows tenacity, and that shows a lot of those soft skills that are so important. And I implore everyone listening, if you're having trouble in your job search, if you're not finding success, it's time to do something different. You can't keep repeating the same things. And Austin's tips here these are incredible, dude. Dude, I applaud you. So your main gig at Microsoft, that's your main gig, and you built a pretty amazing side hustle. So, let's talk a little bit about, the importance of that side hustle. Let's talk about like how much time you put into it, the effort, and what are the first steps that people could take. So, you found this superpower that you have, and we'll get to that in a little bit, that you kind of, built out and you're monetizing it for your side hustle. But how'd you get to that point?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur, since I left college, because I just wanted to do my own thing. And I saw that the people who were running their own businesses had the lifestyle that I wanted to have. And so I think the biggest hang up, and to your point about, how to get started, my biggest issue is that I wanted to create the next Facebook. I think like everybody does. And so I would spin up all these crazy ideas, app ideas, company ideas, whatever, that all required, ridiculous funding and developers and all this crap that I couldn't afford. And so finally, when I got my job at Microsoft, I had a bunch of people reach out to me, and they're like, hey, aren't you the dude who had a 2.0 GPA when you graduated and now you're working at this amazing place. Like how did you do that?
It's great, right?
And oh, it's the best feeling. And after like
I had that when I worked at Amex. I worked at American Express. They're like, you almost failed Buffalo. They're like, where you come from? They would be like, what B school did you go to? I'd be like, I don't even know what that means, dude.
Real life B school. Yeah. And so that was it. So I had like a couple dozen people reach out to me. And after like the 30th person, I was like, well, I'm telling everybody the same thing. So I wrote up this blog post and, at this point I'd been really doing some research on a lot of the people that I look up to in the online biz space. And I was dissecting their writing style and all that. So I finally decided to give it a shot myself. And I wrote up this blog post called How to Get a Job Anywhere with No Connections. If you go to my site,
we're going to link that below for the interview. We're going to link it.
And so it basically walked through the entire, everything that I learned. We kind of skimmed through at a high level in the process, but my process was really data driven. So I basically spent, as soon as I talked to those people, I went on as many interviews as I could, and I applied to as many jobs as I could and talked to as many people. And I kept data on all of it. So I would A/B test resumes. I would try out different interview questions. I would try out different tactics, and I'd keep Excel sheets of how everything worked and success rates and all that. So I had all this data. So I took it and I just wrote up this whole post on how to do it. And I did a little bit of promotion behind it. It ended up getting like 60,000 views in the first 30 days or so.
Awesome.
And and so many people, more so than the views, I had people emailing me and saying like, hey, this is amazing. This really resonated with me. I thought the only thing I could do was apply online. And now this is a brand new approach. And that was 3 years ago now. So we've been up and running, had about 30,000 people plus come through the community. And it's been awesome.
Man.
Yeah.
So what's the offering? Is it coaching? Is it e-learning? It's an e-course. What's the offering?
Yeah, it's across the board. So, I mean, for me, first and foremost, my major thing is to add value. My goal is to help people get jobs. And so I try to make my free content the most valuable free career content on the web. And I truly believe that it is. And I don't mean that to sound, arrogant or whatever. I just, if people check it out, I feel like they'll agree. But on top of that, I do coaching. I do one-on-one coaching. And then I also have a course that I sell, but you can't see the course. You can't see the coaching on the website. You have to sign up for the email list. You have to reach out to me. So again, it's all about
make people do the work, right? Make people show you that they're motivated to do this and they're not just trying to half-ass to get to you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Can't pay to play. Now that's incredible. And how do you get this all done while managing, I know Microsoft's not a 9-to-5 job. How do you manage your time and your effort?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it really comes down to being intentional about it. I think, I was actually, I scroll through Reddit a bunch to just pass the time. And somebody actually put something on there the other day, which I thought was interesting. They're like, everybody says they're tired, right? We're tired all the time. Like I'm tired if I sit on the couch and I don't want to do something. If I go work out, I'm tired. If I work a 12-hour day, I'm tired. So tired really isn't just an excuse anymore. And if you want to get something done, you just have to accept that you're probably going to be tired. And so I'm very intentional about work-life balance. And having my side hustle allows me to control some of that. But I wake up early. My wife and I get up at 5:30 every day. We hit the gym. Then I put in a couple of hours there. And then
you don't have kids, do you?
No, not yet. That's gonna be
that 5:30 is gonna go into baby mode, dude.
Yes. Yep. 100%. And so I'm trying
to get up at 5:45, but it wasn't for the gym.
No,
my 10-month-old was yapping away.
Yeah. So we're trying to get it in before that while we can, and super excited to have kids. But and then after the work day's over, I put in a couple hours in the evening, and then I get a lot of stuff done on the weekend too. And it's, I love doing it though. So it's not really like a burden, and it's not like, that doesn't feel like work to me. It's fun stuff. I enjoy it. And, I see the results. I'm helping people. They email me. They're like, I got a job. And
it's the best feeling in the world when you help people. And you know what, if you can make money added to them, why not? That's a world that we live in. So let's bring it home here with a couple of questions real quick. What does the word authentic mean to you?
I think it's really just being yourself, and staying true to your values, what you believe in. For my site, I donate 5% of my gross profits to a couple of different organizations, and I put them up there. And I think some of the stuff,
awesome, especially
in today's climate, I think if a few of those might be controversial, but those are things that I firmly believe in and I stand by. And so there's that. I'm always trying to get on the phone with people who are in my audience, whether it's 15-minute call, 30-minute call. Even if somebody really needs the help and they can't afford coaching or whatever, I'm not gonna turn them away. And I don't change who I am for anybody to an extent, obviously, but I really just try to bring myself to the table. And I think that's really important for anybody in any business. Yeah.
That's awesome. And Austin, what's the single greatest piece of advice that you've ever received?
I think it's something that my wife told me that really related to the conversation I mentioned while I was job searching, which is, to only take advice from people who already have what you want, because those are the people who are going to be able to give you the best advice. They've been there, they've gone through what you're going through. And, the other people just don't have that same experience. So get that dialed in.
Awesome. And what's the greatest accomplishment that you've had in your career?
The greatest life accomplishment for me is marrying my wife. She's the best, and she's the reason that this whole business, the reason all this can happen.
It's amazing having that rock.
100%. It's one of the best life hacks. But outside of that, the biggest accomplishment for me was honestly getting that job at Microsoft. I think coming from where I was coming from and doing the things that I had to do to get there, the feeling was like undescribable. And every day I'm so grateful to come to work here. I work with amazing people. I get to do amazing work, and they let me run my business on the side.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty lucky.
So they're cool with it. They know what you do.
100%.
They encourage it and have an organization that knows that you're adding value outside. You're not doing it on their time and their dime. So flip that. What is the biggest failure you've had in your career to date, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the biggest failure, honestly, was, I've had a lot of failures. So I guess if we talk on the surface level, I've tried to start 1 million companies and a bunch of them fell on their face and I lost a bunch of money. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that I've had like an epic failure that people I know a lot of people have that where they lost millions of dollars or the company failed or whatever. I haven't had that yet, which is a blessing. And I'm super grateful for that. I think the biggest shortcoming I've had or flaw was honestly back when I started, was assuming that just because everybody was doing it meant it was the way it should be done. And that led to hundreds of applications and countless hours of applying online and getting stressed out and hating myself and being depressed. And once I kind of stepped outside of that and said, hey, let me see, just because everybody's doing this, maybe there's a different way. That's what led me on my path to the job at Microsoft and starting Cultivated Culture.
I love it, man. That's fantastic. And Austin, what is your superpower?
Helping people get jobs. I think that would probably be the number one. But I like to think that I'm pretty good at, building relationships with people that I talk to, and I'm pretty open-minded about different situations, different people, where folks are coming from. And so I always try to stay grounded in that by talking to people in my audience, across the board. But yeah, I think and hope that would be it.
Awesome. And Austin, I ask every guest this question on the podcast. When things are going great, when things are not going great, and you need to look up, what is your North Star?
My wife, 100%. She's always there for me when things aren't going so well, or when things are going great. But I think the former is more important, and she always has great advice to keep me grounded. Sometimes I'm not always up to listen to the advice, but it ends up being great in the end. So I'm just super lucky to have her and have her support.
Dude, Austin, this was awesome. So closing thoughts, everybody. Spray and pray and applying to every job you see blindly is not a good tactic. It's not even a tactic. In fact, it's actually the worst thing you could do. It's a waste of complete time. And you need to be smart and strategic in your job search and give yourself every competitive advantage. How do you stand out from the competition? How do you do that? How do you get in front of the decision makers and influencers? Insights and advice that Austin has shared today is gold. He practices what he preaches and has found great success, and he now shares that with everybody here. And side hustles are not for everyone, but if you feel you have a passion, you can monetize it, and you have the time for it, you're foolish not to. I promise you, you're a fool not to, and you'll regret it. And you may find quickly that it's sustainable and maybe even more financially opportunistic than you thought, and you may want to make a career pivot. And speaking of pivots, they are hard, and they're not for everyone. And you need to capitalize on your transferable skills that directly apply to your new industry. This is important. That's another piece of the side hustle. You learn what you're good at and what you're not good at. Mm-hmm. But you also need to be potentially open to financial and title step back. We didn't really get into that here too much, but to take a step forward, sometimes you got to take a step back. But as I personally experienced, having a tremendous amount of career and life experience behind you will propel you incredibly more in that new role. Folks, the advice that Austin gave today is incredible. This is gold. rewind, listen to this a couple of times. And this is what you need to harness your inner tenacity to drive your career forward. Austin, where could folks find you? Where could they connect with you? And we'll certainly have the links below when we post it.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, my site's cultivatedculture.com. I always, again, trying to add value. So I have a page that has free resume course, the 5 most effective strategies that my audience has found to help them land jobs without applying online. And you can find those at cultivatedculture.com/POZcast. And then outside of that, my email is austin@cultivatedculture.com. Hit me up with questions. I can't be the guy to tell you to cold email people and then ignore you. So I read them all. I reply to them all. Any questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Austin, this is awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Adam. I appreciate it, man.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us again on the POZcast. Please be sure to follow us on all the social media channels. Links will be below in the comments. Subscribe, comment, network. And remember, take your online offline. And thank you for joining us. And catch us next week for another amazing episode of the POZcast.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode jam-packed with more incredible humans. For more info, please visit www.nhptalentgroup.com.